Voting rights. Voting is an essential part of a democracy. The essence of democratic government is that citizens hold the political power and give their government limited powers. Therefore, suffrage, meaning the right to vote, is an extremely important power citizens have over their government because through voting in elections, citizens select government leaders and sometimes even directly vote on laws. From the start of the United States to the present, more people have gained the right to vote, although at times the progress has been like taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Let's dive deeper. Voting rights are determined by a combination of federal and state laws. Originally, states set their own voting requirements. Over time, the federal government has taken a greater role in expanding voting access in all states. Let's examine changes in voting rights throughout history. In the late 1700s, the colonies, and then the states, set their own standards, and they imposed various property requirements to vote. By the 1820s, states had repealed their property ownership requirements for voting so that all white men gained the right to vote. Later on, the federal government and states approved constitutional amendments that greatly expanded the electorate. The 15th Amendment extended voting rights to men of any race. The 19th Amendment granted women the right to vote, thereby basically doubling the size of the electorate. The 26th Amendment lowered the voting age to 18. The 17th Amendment was passed to allow citizens to directly vote for their U.S. senators. The 23rd Amendment finally gave citizens who live in Washington, D.C. the right to vote for president and vice president. And the 24th Amendment was passed to prevent a poll tax so that rich and poor citizens have equal access to voting. In addition to the amendments, there have also been numerous federal laws passed dealing with voting rights. I'll highlight just 2. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 was passed to give the U.S. government more power over states to prevent states from using discriminatory voting practices. This was necessary because, despite the 15th Amendment, racist people still found ways to prevent African Americans from voting. Another federal law dealing with voting rights is the National Voter Registration Act of 1993. This law has made it easier for citizens to register to vote by giving citizens the opportunity to register when dealing with a government office handling driver's licenses, public assistance programs, and disability programs. Along with constitutional amendments and federal laws, the Supreme Court has also impacted voting rights. I'll give 2 examples. In the Gwynne v. United States case, the Supreme Court declared grandfather clauses to be unconstitutional. In short, grandfather clauses were used by states to prevent African Americans from voting despite the passage of the 15th Amendment. And the Harper v. Virginia Board of Elections case determined that poll taxes are prohibited in state elections. Overall, the general trend of the voting rights amendments, laws, and court cases I've mentioned has been to expand voting rights to more citizens and remove any obstacles to voting. Today, nearly all adult citizens, whether natural-born or naturalized, have the right to vote. However, as I noted earlier, throughout history there have also been numerous ways in which voting rights have been undermined so that people have been disenfranchised, meaning people have been deprived of the right to vote. Voting in the 1800s was not by secret ballot, so some people were intimidated away from the polls. When African Americans gained the right to vote after the Civil War, racist people used intimidation, violence, and legal trickery to disenfranchise them. Also, some states created and still have laws disenfranchising people who are imprisoned, convicted of felonies, even if they already served their time, and people who have certain mental illnesses. In recent years, some states have passed laws requiring citizens to show ID to vote. Supporters argue that these laws will help prevent voting fraud. Opponents of these laws argue that voting fraud is not currently a problem, And many citizens who do not have acceptable ID to show will have difficulty getting ID, and so they will be disenfranchised. So as you can see, the general trend in US history has been to expand voting rights. But there have also been instances in which voting rights have been reduced.